Welcome back everyone to a brand new edition of the best champions for every rank. The format for this video will be as follows. We'll be splitting the rank tiers into 3 elo brackets and breaking down 5 of the most optimal champions for each bracket. The first bracket will be called low elo and consist of iron, bronze, silver, and gold. For the second bracket, we'll be calling it mid elo and grouping plat, emerald, and diamond in this one. And lastly, for the third bracket, this will be high elo and consist of masters, grandmasters, and challenger. The reason we're formatting the video like this is because there really isn't a difference in the champions that we would recommend for every single tier. For example, the champion we recommend for silver is the exact same we would recommend for bronze. So this is why we're grouping certain tiers together like this. But before we get into it, be sure to check out SkillCapped if you want to truly get better at League of Legends. We're the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. We do this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't work for you, you shouldn't pay. Learn more at the end of this video or click the link in the description below. Starting things off with our low elo top lane pick, there's just nobody better than Garen right now. It may feel like Garen is always the cop-out low elo selection in these kinds of videos, but he actually is just too good to pass up on if you want to climb fast. We literally saw the champion pulled out at Worlds this year, and if a simple champ like Garen is being picked in Pro, it's a pretty clear indication that the champion is busted. It's really just been the cumulative effect of changes throughout Season 13 that has propelled Garen to the top of the meta. 2 of his main core items, being Stridebreaker and Hullbreaker, were both buffed this season. The emergence of Phase Rush as an optimal keystone on Garen has really helped to alleviate his main weakness of being kited. Just recently here in 13.20, the buffs to Doran's shield make it even more difficult to bully Garen out of lane, which means he'll be able to stick around for longer and just heal up with his passive. The combination of damage, tankiness, and ease of execution are what make Garen so great for low elo, and he should be in every top laner's champion pool who are below gold. We just uploaded a dedicated guide to our website that covers exactly how you can escape low elo from the jungle, and it revolves around spamming Shyvana. Shyvana is such a great low elo jungler because there's much less you need to focus on in order to succeed with her. You don't need to force early ganks, look for skirmishes, or try to invade. Simply full clearing, getting to level 6 as quick as possible, and taking over from then on out is very effective. Consistency is so important in solo queue because you're the only constant in each and every game. As long as you can be consistent, then over a large sample size, you will see results, and Shyvana really helps to enable that. The champion also scales like a complete menace, and that is something we value highly in a good low elo pick. The teamfight of Shyvana is nuts with her E in dragon form, and she can completely wipe fights by herself. Throws are going to happen so often in low elo, which means games last longer, and that plays into Shyvana's hands extremely well, because if she can get the 3 items, the impact is incredibly high. With scaling becoming even more powerful for 13.20, it makes Aurelion Sol a godlike low elo carry. Aurelion Sol's biggest weakness is the early game, so the fact Riot gave Doran's ring more health while reducing turret plating gold and lowering the effectiveness of early dragons, it helps the champion reach the late game a little easier. You want to focus on farming as efficiently as possible throughout the early game with Aurelion Sol. Proc your mana flow band whenever it's up, but you should not be wasting your mana to trade aggressively, as that's just not what the champion's built for. You want to rush the Rylai's and then get to your Liandry's completion to really start coming online. Rylai's rush is quite underrated on Aurelion Sol, but it's seeing far more success than Liandry's rush. Something that a lot of low elo players don't seem to grasp about the new Sol is that he's not the same kind of early game roaming champion he used to be. If your team is spam pinging you to roam, then just mute them. Remember, climbing from low elo is all about consistency. Dropping waves to roam bot at level 2 is no longer a viable strategy on the champion, as your main focus should be to hit at least 80 farm by 10 minutes in every game. The best low elo ADC is almost always going to be Miss Fortune. There may be a patch or 2 here and there where there's an outlier who slips past MF in priority, but she's always going to be top tier. 13.20 actually just got better for MF because Ghostblade was buffed, and that's the item you want to be rushing. Something that low elo players tend to struggle with more is positioning, but because you're rushing Ghostblade, and with the movement speed built into Miss Fortune's W, you can be a lot more shifty and get around quicker than most ADCs. Your main goal with Miss Fortune for each game should be to play around your R cooldown and sit in behind your carries. I know it seems rather simple, but if it were, there would be no such thing as a low elo ADC because they'd just all climb out immediately by doing this. Being ready to follow up on your team's engage and using your R when the enemy is CC'd will allow you to be effective in almost every single game. Carrying from the support role can be more difficult in the lower ranks, but it really depends on who you're playing. If you're picking an enchanter, you're making things way more difficult than they have to be, as you should be looking to spam a carry mage like Zyra. Zyra has all the tools for a great low elo support. She scales really nicely with items and has an amazing mid game. Teamfight is incredibly powerful, as the zone control around objectives with her plants and ultimate allows you to be extremely effective. You also don't have to rely on your ADC as much as other supports because you can be the main damage threat. When you're playing an enchanter or a melee engaged support, you need a competent team in order to win games. With Zyra, your ADC could be inting, and it's not even that unwinnable if you're able to one-shot the enemy with your full combo at level 6. Level 6 is really where you should be looking to be more aggressive with Zyra. Fishing for roots with E, and if one hits, following up with your ultimate can chunk the enemy super hard, and oftentimes all your ADC has to do is throw in 1 or 2 extra autos to finish off kills. For our mid-elo top lane selection, the champ is ever so slightly more sophisticated than Garen, but is still extremely easy and effective, being Nasus. There's no reason to make things more difficult for yourself right now when an easy champ like Nasus is as strong as he is. The anti-snowball changes in 13.20 have been wonderful for Nasus, as he has an easier time stacking Q and reaching that godly mid-game spike. Your main objective and what's imperative for you to succeed on Nasus is not dying throughout the early levels. Don't tunnel on getting every single stack with Q if it means you're going to take a bad trade in the process. Let the enemy push into you, the wave can crash, and then you can collect all your farm. One thing that holds Nasus back a bit more for high elo is that by doing this, he's more susceptible to getting dove by good junglers. But from plat to diamond, you really shouldn't run into this issue all that often. When you get level 6 is where you can really begin taking over and trying to secure every stack with Q. Divine Sunderer completion is another big spike to play for, and if you're super close to the item, forcing a close fight is almost never worth it. The absolute perfect jungler for plat, emerald, and diamond right now is Briar. She fits into this elo bracket really nicely because it's high enough to where players are able to pilot her well mechanically, but it's still low enough to where players won't be able to punish her early on. If you can stay even or get ahead with Briar, then there are few junglers with more carry potential than her. Mid-game spike, when you have your Bruiser Mythic and Black Cleaver completed, is where things get spicy. Briar synergizes incredibly well with Black Cleaver because she can get to max stacks of the armor shred super quick. At this point in the game, you'll be dealing massive damage while still being very difficult to take down due to all the health from your 2 core items and built-in sustain from her kit. Since Briar does have a more unique kit, it may take you a bit of time to get used to her, but it's definitely well worth the time spent as she's a very powerful jungler in the right hands. Another scaling mid lane champion who has seen a big spike in power for 13.20 is Kassadin. Cass is our mid lane selection for mid elo, as he does take a bit more skill to execute than someone like Aurelion Sol. Target selection and choosing your openings later on definitely requires more knowledge than just sitting there and spamming out a point and click Q with Aurelion Sol. With that being said, Cass is still rather easy to pilot compared to most other mid lane champs as long as you don't int early on. Unless you're in a super free melee matchup like Echo or Katarina, you can take teleport to ensure that you keep up in farm. Experience is so important on Kassadin because his level spikes are massive. You never want to be sharing XP if possible, so if your bot lane ends up rotating to mid after they win lane, head down bot to farm solo XP and be ready with your teleport if a fight breaks out. Once you hit the level 11 is where you can begin looking to play much more aggressive and trying to find picks on squishy targets that are caught out alone. The absolutely perfect ADC for mid elo and fresh off some huge buffs is Jinx. Jinx now has one of the most devastating mid to late game teamfights for any champion due to her passive attack speed now stacking on takedowns. Forget about the late game, the early game skirmish is even drastically better as the buff has helped her at all stages of the game. Being a champion who is more reliant on positioning and auto attacking to be effective, Jinx fits in as a great mid elo ADC. In low elo you can still make Jinx work, but mechanically she's quite a bit more demanding than Misfortune. The little things that go a long way like flame chompers, timing, and hitting W consistently makes Jinx a much better suited ADC for plat and above. All in all, Jinx is a phenomenal carry right now due to the buffs, and she should be in your champion pool for ADC if you're a plat, emerald, or diamond. For our mid elo support selection, a fantastic carry who has become even better as of recent is Senna. Senna is just that good right now that we could even have her as our #1 high elo support as well. 13.20 has been huge for the champion as more health on starting items means a less vulnerable early game, while the buffs to Ghostblade provide her with a bit more oomph on that mid game spike. The reason we like Senna better for mid or high elo is because she does require much more mechanical prowess than someone like Zyra. You've got to have your positioning down pat with Senna while being able to kite around in fights, which is just an unnecessary burden to focus on if you're trying to climb low elo. Positioning poorly with Zyra is often less punishing than the likes of Senna because at least with Zyra you can look to unload your full combo before you die to be impactful, while with Senna you kinda just die without doing anything. With that being said, if you can pilot Senna well, stack up souls, and get to a couple of items, the carry power is incredible right now. A top lane champ with exceptional scaling strength but who requires much more mechanical skill to pull off, which makes her amazing for high elo, is Camille. Camille has been seeing a lot of success post anti-snowball patch as the champion can take over games 2 items onward. You've got the low cooldown Cho'Gath ultimate with Camille Q, which provides incredible burst and consistent dueling threat. The versatility really makes Camille a monster for high elo as well. This variance is often less attractive for low elo because having so many different options is not the best if you're learning the game. But for high elo, being able to split push or team fight is a huge luxury in a top lane champ. Although Camille's straight up 5v5 is not that crazy, her flank power and ability to isolate a fed carry is. When you get ahead with the champion, looking for these flank angles on the enemy team while they're nonchalantly clearing out waves makes it so easy to close out games on Camille. At the same time though, splitting and knocking down towers with her Q and Divine Sunder's Spellblade proc is a breeze, so the adaptability is something that makes Camille so great. One of the best junglers for high elo who has seen a big spike in power as of recent is Graves. With so many junglers being hit by the 13.20 changes, Graves has not been hurt nearly as bad, which in turn has increased his priority. Ghostblade being buffed for this patch has been big for Graves, along with his ability to run Scorch Claw, which means he's not affected by the Gustwalker nerfs. Who knows if this will get patched or not, so be on the lookout in the coming patches, but an early Doran's Blade pickup is looking to be extremely powerful on Graves after the item buffs. Lots of high elo Graves players are grabbing a Doran's on their first base to really take over the early game. The cost efficiency of the item just shot up massively in 13.20, so if you want to really exert as much early game pressure as possible, it's the way to go. Graves, being a champion who scales extremely well with items, is also loving the less snowbally nature of 13.20. Most of the time, the longer games last, the more impact that Graves is going to have, as he can begin nearly one-shotting squishies with his autos. The main reason we don't have Graves as the low or mid-elo jungle selection is simply due to the fact that he requires more mechanical skill to pull off than the likes of Shyvana or Briar. Moving on to the high elo pick for mid lane in a really great spot right now is Syndra. The new haste stack build that we recently featured in the 13.20 OP builds video is giving Syndra a lot of added power right now. Syndra's mid-game spike with Leandries and Cosmic Drive is super good, and she can take over games from then on out. Ever since the Syndra mini rework, she has been more of that mid to late game scaling champion instead of the lane bully like before, so this anti-snowball patch plays into her hands extremely well. Between Aurelion Sol, Kassadin, and Syndra, Syndra is definitely the most difficult to execute, which is why she's in the high elo bracket. Meme all you want about the point and click R, but all her other abilities are skill shots, and to really play Syndra to her potential, it's going to take a lot more skill than Cass or Aurelion. You can play this champ in any elo bracket and have a ton of success right now, but he's even better for high elo, being Ziggs. Buffs this patch have been huge, and it's led to a pretty big spike in Ziggs' play rate for Masters and above, doubling, going from 2.5 to 5%. When you have teammates that are much more competent to play around the turret, taking pressure that Ziggs provides, stomping early on and then running away with games is extremely easy. Making those rotational plays around the map after knocking down bot lane tower are a bit more difficult to execute in the lower ranks, since players are less likely to understand how to play around a winning Ziggs. Really abusing the teleport advantage and playing off that lost chapter spike is also much easier in high elo. Overall, Ziggs is an exceptionally strong bot lane carry right now, and should be in your champion pool at the very least as a pocket pick for when your team lacks magic damage. One support champion who is just way better for high elo right now and coming off some really great buffs is Bard. The roaming power of Bard has become absolutely nuts after his 13.18 buffs, and in high elo, where your ADC is more likely to respect roam timers and not just randomly die in lane when you leave, it gives Bard a lot more consistent strength. High elo games also tend to be way more snowbally, and leads that you can give your laners will often translate into much more. This makes a roaming champion like Bard way more successful in high elo, because if you can get that one kill for your mid laner, it's less likely that they'll just throw it away. Vice versa in the lower ranks, you could get your mid ahead multiple kills and they'll just perma push and die to ganks, give over shutdowns, and all your effort goes to waste. Of course, there's also the mechanical aspect of Bard that makes him a much better suited champion for the higher tiers of play. Putting the time into Bard is definitely well worth it right now if you are Masters and above, as the playmaking potential of the champ is really limitless. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about SkillCapped. So, we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent challenger players into Elo Hell 714 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. So that's going to be all for this one, guys. 5 champs for each Elo bracket that are extremely powerful in the current meta. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.